Well, we're on the home stretch, ladies and gents. In just a few short weeks, 2022 will be a mere glimmer in the rearview mirror of history, and with the long, cold nights drawing in, I thought this week I'd kick off our Christmas season with a film that'll really chill the blood. Not necessarily because it's scary, you understand. This fucking film, oh boy. 1992's Winterbeast is an experience, I think it's fair to say. It's Things light. It's the I can't believe it's not butter to Things full fat lard. It's a little bit more coherent than Things, but only by a whisker. I can always tell when a movie is going to be interesting to talk about when I get to the end credits and feel like I have to immediately watch it again because it almost felt like I'd suffered a concussion and that the last 70 to 90 minutes hadn't really happened. And joining me in the Head Trauma Ward this week to try and make sense of the indescribable, we have longtime friend of the show, Prince of Podcasting and the fresh face of Philly himself, George from the Best Little Horror House in Philly. George, you agreed to do this to yourself. Why? Oh, and also thanks so much for joining me today. How's it going?
Hi Dan, happy to be here. It's going well and all the better for watching Winterbeast again. I agreed to this because on my show we talk about the best horror movie ever made, according to our guests at least, which means we get to cover everything from Fritz Lang's M to The Conjuring, from Thread to The Devil's Rejects. You yourself came on to talk about The Wicker Man. But what we don't typically get to talk about is movies like Winterbeast. And I'm a big fan of B-movies, not only because it's crucial to not becoming inured to just how great the greats are, but also, hey, who doesn't love a bit of earnest failure schadenfreude?
Fabulous stuff, and great to have you back, man. So, Winterbeast, a film that initially began production in 1986, shooting on 8mm film, and wrapping filming in 1989 on 16mm film. They weren't filming for that entire time, but apparently they'd shoot dribs and drabs wherever possible, and then at some point in 1987 or 1988, they managed to secure some funding, which allowed them to start filming on 16mm. So they went back and refilmed some of the ropier 8mm footage in higher quality. In fact, only 2 scenes from the original 86 8mm shoot made it into the final film. Throw in 3 years in post-production, in which nearly 4 years of footage on various stocks and qualities were woven together, and add in some border Things-grade synth scoring and some actually frankly impressive, if not bizarre, stop-motion footage, and you have a hell of a strange time on your hands with this one. The film follows one Sergeant Bill Whitman, a ranger for a small town trying to manage and maintain the peace up in the mountains. A ranger station near the peak has recently been reactivated, and Whitman's been stationed there alongside a relatively new ranger called Stillman. Stillman's quite laissez-faire compared to Whitman's by-the-book constitution, but the pair just about get on alright. In the opening moments of the film, we see Bill having a nightmare in which he sees a park ranger all torn up and several stop-motion demons wandering around the ranger station. Shaken, he heads up to the station to start his shift, but on arrival he realises that something's gone down. Stillman informs him that a short time ago a civilian called Dick Sargent arrived at the station carrying one of their rangers by the name of Bradford. Apparently he encountered trouble while hiking, 2 rangers came out to help him, and someone or something emerged from the backwoods, savaged Bradford and disappeared into the thick woodland with the other ranger. The pair are suspicious of Dick, believing that he's making the story up and that he himself attacked the rangers. But after some light interrogation, while still suspicious, they don't really have anything on him to suggest he did do anything, so they agree to let him go. Dick offers to show the pair where the incident happened in the morning, and Stillman agrees to accompany him to the location at the crack of dawn. Bill, meanwhile, goes to talk to Bradford, who corroborates Dick's story more or less. Concerned, Bill heads back to talk to Stillman, and what can only be described as 5 minutes of idle chatter happens in which they talk about how the cabin hasn't been cleared out in years. Stillman talks about a big stack of nudie mags from the 50s he found in the back of the ranger cabin, and the pair talk about booze for an ungodly amount of time until talk starts up about the Wild Goose Lodge. The Wild Goose Lodge sits almost at the peak of the mountain and was closed for quite a long time until the previous owner's son, Dave Sheldon, returned to town. He paid off the lodge's outstanding debts and reopened it with the aim of trying to turn a profit. With the disappearances sitting on Bill's mind, he decides it's probably a good idea to head up to the lodge to warn Dave of the odd happenings and to maybe suggest limiting the guests of the lodge to certain trails. When they arrive at the lodge, however, Dave is in full presenting mode, providing light comic relief and a raffle to the guests. During a break, Bill fills Dave in on the disappearances, but Dave dismisses the occurrence as he says that 24 hours hasn't even elapsed yet since the disappearance and that people vanish and turn up all the time. Dave says he isn't going to tell the guests not to walk the trails until after at least 24 hours of the ranger still being missing. And even then, he doesn't seem too keen to do anything about it because he thinks it'll cause concern amongst the guests with the risk of cancellations and people checking out early. Bill patiently continues to try and convince Dave to close the trails, but a short time later a full-blown bar brawl breaks out between Dick and one of the guests of the hotel, over seemingly nothing. And even more bizarrely, it stops as quickly and randomly as it starts. The scene doesn't really so much as end, more just fades down. And suddenly it's dawn the next day, and Stillman and Dick meet up to go and investigate the site where the ranger vanished. And after an overly long sequence of driving through the town where they pick up Bill, Bradford and another ranger, the group all head deep into the woods and arrive at a clearing, where a large totem with several bloody and ripped open skeletons hang. Bradford suggests that they should get out of there as it's a bad omen. Bill is also hesitant as he says he's seen this before in one of his dreams. So, they investigate the area a bit, take some photos and decide that this should offer the strongest possible evidence that the mountain should be closed off to tourists while further investigations take place. Up at the Wild Goose, some kind of jamboree is taking place. Bill finds Dave and again really tries to insist that the trails be closed and that anyone who can be escorted off the mountain is. Dave is beyond dismissive of Bill's suggestions, claiming that it's all basically supernatural claptrap and that they're perfectly safe where they are. Once again turned away, Bill speaks to Bradford, who tells him about the Chikora, a Native American spirit who causes terror and chaos on the mountains and can breed even worse horrors than itself the longer it's allowed to roam. Through the night, even more strange occurrences occur, and even more evidence of the Chikora is made present to the rangers. The next morning we follow two hikers on the mountain who end up being attacked by demons who erupt out of the ground and drag the pair into the woods. Bill manages to get the photos developed of the sacrificial totems and takes them up to the lodge to show Dave, who, at this point, erupts at Bill and accuses him of falling in with the local supernatural nonsense, essentially saying that because of this his opinions on Bill have fallen sharply. Later that night, the demons come down from the woods and start to inhabit the town, causing power outages and making ungodly noises, much to the fear of the townsfolk.
A guy gets his head ripped off by a demon, and with the corpses stacking up, they close the ranger's office, which infuriates Dave. "We don't want the public to think this is a dangerous area after all." But Bill says it is. Dave dismisses it out of hand. No demons except the assholes who try and make them. As he says this, a ranger is being devoured by a zombie, so it's debatable. After he refuses once again to close the lodge, it's revealed that Dave has collected the corpse and is playing with it like a puppet and fondling the neck flesh of the wound. He's not just an asshole, he's a crazy asshole who's been in on it all along. The rangers spy him dancing with the corpses and are stunned until he says, "Me and my ancestors figured out that their images summon them, and I'm here to finish this prophecy," before his head explodes in flames. The rangers decide better safe than sorry and go to chop down the sacrificial totem pole, but the newly summoned demon isn't so keen on that. And as for what happens in the showdown, you'll just have to watch for yourself.
With production on this film being so long, I'm having a bit of a hard time establishing whether the finished product that's come out the other side is a result of parts of the script being dropped due to budget concerns, a loss of continuity because of how long the runtime was on this, or just an incoherent script to begin with. Everything kind of has a woozy, not quite sensical tone to it. Some scenes rumble on for an eternity with no real point, while actually plot-critical scenes will come and go in the blink of an eye. There's a ton of repetition, particularly with Bill trying to get Dave to either close the lodge or warn his lodgers to avoid the trails. And even at only 74 minutes long, the amount of padding here to get it to that is frankly quite obscene. Despite its slapdash attitude towards scripting, at least there is a plot. It's not something so abstract as to be unidentifiable. And at least there's a clear beginning, middle and end. It might only loosely utilise a middle act, but there is an unmistakable shift in tone from the first to second act. I think the biggest problem this script has is really just its incoherency. You're never quite sure what is or isn't important to retain, and even the stuff that is important doesn't really actually mean anything when it gets down to brass tacks. The whole film could literally be best summarised as there's a demon that can make even stronger demons attacking hikers on a mountain, and a group of rangers are trying to persuade a lodge owner to leave for the best part of 50 minutes until it's revealed he's aware of the demons and a bit deranged. That plot shouldn't take nearly 75 minutes to surmise. That could be done easily in 30, if not 20 minutes. As a result, I kinda came away from this film feeling like a whole lot of nothing had taken place. I mean, it had cool moments punctuating that nothingness, but I still didn't exactly come away feeling the same sense of satisfaction that I do with your average 90-minute feature. Equally, the dialogue throughout doesn't exactly hit the mark. It's a very stilted script that almost reads like someone's first ever attempt at writing, anything really. Spoiler alert, it's because it was. The actors don't exactly help the situation, but I think even if the cast were A-list, they'd have really struggled to bring this dialogue to life. The comparison to Things is strong for me. I'd say it's a tad more coherent in that regard, but only a tad. It really is a bizarre piece of work, with non-sequiturs constantly derailing the film to the point that it becomes very hard to make out exactly where the plots are going due to how confusing the conversations can be in places. This is a real mess of a script, and whether it's because the script really was just this messy right out of the gate, the resulting end product is a total oddity that more than stands out as a result.
I know that the timelines are a little wonky, thanks to this being in production for so long, but it does feel incredibly Twin Peaks-esque to me. You get these bizarre characters with equally bizarre dialogue delivered, you guessed it, bizarrely. A cop comes back to town with a little more steadiness than the people around him, and he solves crime with his dreams and willingness to accept the strange. And the script kind of feels cobbled together from a bunch of stuff that Chris Theus liked already. Hey, I've seen Jaws. What if that was on a mountain instead of the ocean, and Pretend Grizzly didn't come out in 1976? And we could get a little Evil Dead in there, probably. But I have to respect dragging this movie across the finish line, kicking and screaming. In fact, it's almost more impressive that this movie got made despite the challenges it faced than a movie where everything went smoothly.
From a direction standpoint, well, it's chaotic, but I feel it probably could have been worse. The obvious elephant in the room is the direction of the cast. With the film being shot in dribs and drabs across a 4-year window, and with this being a first-time production for most of the crew, the actors involved in this have a sketchy time. As the film wasn't shot in order, the earlier shot footage is a little more basic, and direction around the actors is kept to a minimum. As the shoot went on, they clearly felt more comfortable guiding the cast through a scene, and the actors felt more comfortable taking direction. But this means we constantly cut from shots that were all filmed near the beginning of the project that seem underproduced to shots near the end that have been polished up a bit, and all this can happen in the same scene. The result is tonally jarring to say the least, but at least there's a very real and literal sense of development and growth from the director. In terms of realising the director's vision, given the budget, the lack of availability and the amount of time taken to complete the film, I'm honestly just impressed they finished it. It's not good by any stretch, but at least some of the sequences sort of make sense and have a clear style in mind. I also have to commend the use of stop motion. It's clear that movies like The Evil Dead had a big influence over the style for this one, with some shot setups that almost mirror shots from the first 2 Evil Dead movies. Stop motion's an absolute bitch at the best of times, so the fact this film has quite a lot of it in, and that it doesn't look like absolute arse of the highest order, I'd say is actually beyond impressive. It's not Harryhausen grade by any stretch, but it's relatively fluid and the monsters all look and feel fairly original.
Yeah, I have to agree that the stop motion in this movie is pretty incredible. How can you not cackle with delight at a clay monster just hurling a clay person at the wall of a house from point blank, or ripping the head off of a clay person and little clay blood spurts out? You know, animation instead of shoddy effects is a bold move, but it definitely works for me here. Also, the fight scene is a lot of fun. It's well directed if you're directing for maximum goofs. There are a few other moments that stand out to me as being pretty solid for as far as the way it's shot. I genuinely like the moment where Charles Majka stretches and recreates the pose of the Native American statue behind him, and the moment where the Rangers all line up is a direct recreation of the Bookhouse Boys lining up in Twin Peaks. But you know what? It looked good there, which means it looks good here too. On the other hand, you get shots like at around 42 minutes, they're having a conversation outside the lodge, and the other guy just kind of wanders into the frame foreground, and he lights a cigarette. You're not really sure if he's there on purpose or not, until like a minute later, when the other two Rangers wander over to him and start talking. So we'll say mixed bag.
On the Cine front, again, it's not exactly great, but it could be far worse. With most involved in this being first and generally only timers, I wasn't exactly expecting Baz Luhrmann level production values here, but scenes just about manage to hobble over the line. They're often just locked off mid-wides or head and shoulder reverse shots, but in this case I'd rather them play it safe and let the stop motion be the spectacle than to try and get them to go crazy on the Cine and muck that up as well. That's not to say by any stretch that it's good. The framing in some shots is well off, and while I acknowledge that this is a safer shoot than most, it still would have been nice to see something a little bit outside of the standard comfort zone. The aging and de-aging of the cast due to the length of time the film took to make is quite noticeable in places, which made me laugh as we see actors go from having pepper-speckled hair to full-blown white literally in between cuts. And because of the lack of care from a continuity standpoint, it has rather left the edit in a state where they put it together as best they could rather than professionally. That being said, they have implemented coloured gel lights for a faux sense of stylisation, and they do use lighting to replicate indoor night shots, where it would have just been easier to put some cabin lights on and black out the windows. Which, when combined with the aforementioned stop-motion work, at least shows an attempt to jazz up the shots more than just point camera at thing, go, cut.
Yeah, I am willing to let a lot of stuff slide in a movie like this, but shooting day for night is pretty unforgivable to me. It just always looks absolutely terrible, and it's not like it's that difficult to cover the lights. It's a real blemish on a movie that otherwise at least seems to have effort put in, no matter what you say about the execution. Otherwise, it's not so noticeably terrible to stick out, which frankly is an accomplishment in my opinion for this movie. You can at least tell what's going on, which is more than can be said for a lot of movies with similar budgets.
Performance-wise, the absolute star of this movie for me has got to be Bob Harlow as Dave Sheldon, who here gives a perfectly demented performance, dual-wielding a border-obnoxious lodge owner who's approachable, kind and jokey, while, at the click of a finger, can morph into a totally deranged and border-psychotic character who'd literally see his lodge go down in flames before he'd close it, demons or otherwise. An absolutely mesmerising performance. I'm astounded, frankly, that this was one of his only on-screen acting credits. He absolutely needed to appear in more things other than this, and I feel the world's a poorer place for the lack of that. Tim R. Morgan and Mike Magri are fine enough as Bill and Stillman. They have a schlubby, buddy energy that helps carry the film when things are faltering, but they're far from perfect and don't exactly scream lead character material to me. But I think they do a fine enough job at what they do, and there weren't really any moments where I felt the need to eye roll, which, for a movie like this, is always treated as a good sign. The rest of the cast range from passable to awful, honestly, with Charlie and Bradford giving decent performances, but most of the extras being, frankly, beyond dire. We're talking broken, stilted line delivery and then stumbling vaguely out of shot level bad. And while I'll be the first to say the line delivery from the actors across the board in this film is simply dreadful, barring maybe Harlow's performance, which is played intentionally over the top and campy, I have to admit, I did find it entertaining. It's got a level of black comedy running all the way through it, which really takes the edge off what could have otherwise been a quite rough watch, honestly.
Part of what I like about this movie is how terrible the performances are. Everyone is 100% committed to the worst possible instinct every time. Mike Magri as Stillman, the comic relief with the sunglasses permanently adhered to his face, is amusing, but Bob Harlow as Mr. Sheldon, the lodge owner, is the clear standout. He's a triple threat. He'll make you laugh, he'll make you feel uncomfortable, and just watch him dance. He's doing Jaws Mayer filtered through Wyndham Earl, and brother, these are two great tastes that taste great together. The rest are all various shades of stiff, but they're here to prop up Mr. Sheldon and the claymation for me. I do love how you can tell that they're working on a budget by how first take, best take things are. Towards the beginning, Bill starts coughing in the middle of the other guy's line, and they just said, we don't have the film to go back and do it again, so they left it in. It's charming and scrappy.
And finally, the soundtrack. It's atrocious. The comparisons to things continue, but it really is true, because the soundtrack was dubbed and redubbed so many times to make the final edit mix that it's hissy, fuzzy, nth generation degraded synth strikes, and that's about it. It's disjointed, is edited in seemingly at random, and only really suits the film in the sense that it's so unhinged sounding that it suits the chaotic energy of the edit, which is also all over the place. It's so bizarre, and only made weirder by the fact it suits the film so perfectly. Like, I can't imagine any other kind of scoring punctuating this film.
I wasn't sure if this should go in the soundtrack, but there's some generally bad audio that makes me laugh as well. For instance, in the lounge introduction to the lodge owner, the audience is laughing at his jokes, and the laugh track gets cut so poorly. It's really just delightful. Otherwise, yeah, the synth is kind of just doing its thing. It's discordant, and I respect the disjointed feel, but it's not particularly great. It just kind of exists for me.
Winterbeast was released on VHS in the US in 1992 by Tempe Video. Nice. It received a special edition DVD release in 2008 courtesy of Sub Rosa Studios before finally landing on shiny Blu-ray in 2021 courtesy of Vinegar Syndrome as part of their Homegrown Horrors box set. And I've got to say they've done a remarkable job in cleaning this thing up. It looks pristine given its patchwork quality and history, and the disc is packed with extras including deleted scenes, outtakes, making-ofs, and interviews with the cast and crew. Not to mention a slightly longer work print cut that had previously been unavailable. It's probably the most comprehensive release this film will ever get, and it looks so good for it. I'm kind of conflicted about Winterbeast in all honesty. I love films that embrace the absurd and abstract and end up feeling like some kind of weird drug haze as a result, but Winterbeast, while definitely having a lot of moments like that in it, to me at least feels just a little too grounded for me to ever honestly fully let myself float off into the weirdness with it. It's just a little too rigid with its ideas and concepts. It's a fun film, and I absolutely can recommend it if you enjoyed movies like Wicked World or Things. I just don't think I quite enjoyed it as much as those two.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of fell head over heels for this movie. It's so dreamlike and strange. The mixed media aspect in particular also helps to create a surrealism that I really enjoy. The performances are so funny in general, thanks to a dynamic blend of real effort and more stiffness than the Tin Man before Dorothy showed up. There's a part where Magri is dancing around with a mask on, and Majka is so baffled, and he looks backwards in the hopes that there's someone behind him who might know what the hell is going on, but there's nobody. It's just him and the lodge owner. And this is a perfect encapsulation of the movie at large. We're Majka, and Magri is the Winterbeast, and ultimately, all you can do is throw up your hands, laugh, and go along for the ride. I also got this from the Homegrown Horrors box, and it completely outshone the other two for me. Pure passion, captured on celluloid. It's short, it's goofy, it's unique, it's the baby, gotta love it.
George, thank you so much for your time today. You've been a gent and a scholar, and I'm glad you managed to make it to the other side of this thing with your sanity intact. After all, I know you're used to covering only the best, right?
Thanks so much for having me, Dan, and that's right, we are used to the best horror movies ever made, according to our guest at least. Lots of great comedy guests like Paul Rust, Hal Rudnick, Kevin Bartelt, and more, talking about your favorite movies from the canon, like Psycho and The Fly, to scrappy favorites like The Hidden and Cemetery Man. A lot of fun, I do a lot of research, lots of commentary listening, and all kinds of stuff. Jump in anywhere, and just, I hope you listen. Wherever you normally listen to podcasts. The best little horror house in Philly.
Fantastic stuff, and I highly recommend you check out George's stuff if you get the chance. It's simply phenomenal. I'll pop a link in the description, and I'd say definitely check it out. And with that, Winterbeast. It's a goofy, nutty, kind of fun. Till next time.